The Alternative Experience.
The Alternative Experience. The Alternative Experience.
Hey everyone, welcome to Alternative Experience. Thanks for tuning in. So this is the first episode for just over a month. I have been on a podcast tour. I made a few guest appearances on other people's podcasts. Wanted to see what it was like from the other side of the microphone, and I have to say I really did love it. I will share the links to those episodes with you once they go live. I've also been making a few tweaks to the format of this show. I know you all tune in to hear my beautiful voice as I rant over one subject or another, but I thought it was time to really put focus on having two-way conversations. The feedback on the previous ones have been very good, so that's where the focus is going to be. And there really are some amazing people out there that I believe everybody needs to hear from. Now, I have set the bar very high for my first guest. So the pressure really is on moving forwards. But this week I was lucky enough to sit down for a great conversation with a gentleman called Jonathan Otto. Now, many of you will already know of Jonathan's work, as he really is kind of a pioneer in his field. But I've been following him for the last 4 years, and I've been trying to get him on the show for most of those. So I was super excited to get the opportunity to sit down with him. Now, Jonathan is an investigative journalist, documentary filmmaker, very, very active humanitarian. But the area that I first became aware of him was through his work in autoimmunity and chronic disease. Now, very similar to myself, Jonathan is a proponent for a more natural or at least alternative approach to all disease. And he has a very, very deep focus on lesser known, scientifically backed and highly effective protocols that have actually the potential not just to treat but to cure many of today's common health complaints. Now, we had some early technical issues which created some challenges in my edit. As you know, I usually like to publish my conversations completely unedited, but this particular show, Zoom had other ideas. Not sure what happened there, but that being said, I do think I've managed to rescue the episode, and we really did have a great opening conversation of which we really do hope to have a follow-up on. So without any further delay, Alternative Experience meets Jonathan Otto. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Cheers, guys.
Right. Well, look, we got the solution.
Technology.
Hey, yeah. Oh, it's all good, man. Well, great to connect with you, brother.
And you. It's been a long time coming. Like I mentioned, you came onto my radar during that particular autoimmune secret summit, which was quite amazing. And I remember sort of looking through your profile and seeing the missionary work that you were doing. And one thing that struck me from that as well is, again, it didn't seem like that was being done for social media likes. I mean, this predates a lot of the buzz that you have at the moment. It was quite nice to see this was obviously something that you had chosen to do. It was like a mission that you had. When you did that was that what sparked your journey into where you are now? Obviously seeing the state that some of these villages actually have to live in, etc. Obviously opened up to you things like things that we know, starvation, malnutrition, but also the corruption side of things. I mean, it's my opinion that nobody needs to live like that in this world. Did it sort of start this journey that you had, or was this just out of the blue?
No, it was all deeply connected. And you're right that I was actually reluctant to talk about what I was doing in Kenya on social media. I had just done it personally for a long time before I started talking about it publicly. And it was because, I don't know, a couple of things. Like, I felt like if you're going to do something good, just let it be between you and God. That was the main reason. And I felt like unless you had a really clear purpose, it would make it worse than if you'd never done it, in terms of, like, if it was for your own personal thing or character. Imagine if you're like sitting there with somebody, and this is what happened with some of the agencies that even when I worked with World Vision, not that this is not common, but there would be cases where people would be working for these organizations that give people some supplies, take photos, and then say, look at what we've done, and then actually take the supplies back.
Wow.
And because it was all about the show, and it was all about the kind of the look of doing good, and they could keep doing that, and then they would just be pocketing the money and things like that. And again, that's not necessarily common, but you got all kinds of like corruption that even happens at that level. But in terms of that connection between the two things, in both cases, whether somebody's starving because they have no food, or because they are, or like if you see somebody that has cancer or autoimmune disease and they're emaciated, visibly it looks the same. Physiologically, there's a lot of similarities. And so it definitely was the same in that sense. And in the case of the humanitarian work, my role as an investigative journalist was to uncover what was causing that issue in the first place.
Hmm.
How did that poverty start, and then how do we fix it? And it was complicated, and there was a need to cross-reference different things. There was a need to work hard on innovative solutions, and so there was definitely a commonality for me. And then I kind of originally thought, like I guess everyone else, that that's what you got doctors for, and they're solving that problem. Things that people are suffering with are just because there's not really much you can do. But I started to understand that it was an information war, and people were suffering because of a lack of information. And so then I committed myself to that outcome, and I became extremely good at cross-referencing data and information to create and pioneer protocols and solutions for people that were working, and then I used my kind of skills to motivate people and to drive people towards answers, and emphasize things and tell stories around those solutions, so that it was very clear to people, and then people would be more likely to stick to something because they saw results from it.
Hmm.
And that's how I became known then as one of the pioneers and leaders in the space of autoimmune disease, cancer, vaccine injuries, and reversing those injuries. And I'm super grateful for that. So that's kind of how that came together, Nikki.
And when you, I mean, obviously, we've touched on the kind of the obvious corruption in places like that, where obviously the top down kind of hoard resources, and it's kind of a situation that's perpetuated. Were you kind of aware of how broad that was at the time? Was there a moment when you sort of kind of went, "Oh my God, this goes so deep"?
Yeah, yeah, there was. And like all of this goes back to the point when I started traveling to Africa. That was 22 years ago now. And there was little I knew then.
Hmm.
And like HIV, what I know it to be now, and how reversible it is, including AIDS. And I was like, I did not know that then. And I was
Hmm.
with these communities, and I wanted so bad to solve these problems, and we were told that this was an incurable disease, and that this was the reality. And now knowing that what's causing these types of diseases is
Hmm.
actually some of what these organizations are actually even a part of. The non-government organizations are
Yeah.
also a part of them because of the mass vaccinations. And it took several years to work that out. It probably was around, maybe 15 years ago, I started to say, hold on a second, this is not all accurate. This information that's being put out, the agendas of these organizations, and why is it that a study goes out, like with the Red Cross study on chlorine dioxide in Uganda, and how it was 100% effective against malaria and it cost nothing. And why did the Red Cross pretend like it never happened and block it, and actually then try to completely derail that information that Jim Humble uncovered? And so at that point, I had to decide whether I was truly committed to that cause, or whether I wanted to just kind of be in a politically correct version of that. And so I'm still doing the humanitarian work. I was just actually working out another campaign I'm doing. I took my parents a few months ago to Kenya, and they experienced that with me. We were working to fundraise and help these communities, and I'm doing a lot, but I wish I was doing so much more. You never really feel like you're doing enough when you're in that line of work. But most importantly, when it comes to solutions, if you follow this train of thought, and if you're watching this, you're struggling from an autoimmune condition, or another condition, just know that it's a solvable problem, and it's really information that you need. There's some piece of information that you're missing, and it could be just using fulvic acid to repair your gut lining, or using red light therapy to heal your gut, or using an anti-parasitic protocol to clear your parasitic infection that's driving that issue. It could be using nicotine to compete for the nicotinic acetylcholine receptors in your gut and to put that condition in remission. And so let's try these therapies. Let's use them in combination, and let's see the results, because people are getting better left, right, and center. I don't see people that these protocols don't work for. It's not that it works in maybe 50% of people. It works in 100% of people. It's just a matter of continuing and not giving up, and looking at that again, and not being certainly not blaming the person, which is what a lot of functional medicine doctors are doing when their protocols don't work, because they're not open-minded enough, and they're not willing to look at what's actually causing a lot of these different things. They don't spend time researching outside of their wheelhouse. Typically, they research just within their wheelhouse. And then if it doesn't work for the patient, they blame the patient and kind of just say they're not being strict enough or something like that. And it's almost always just a lack of information. There's another piece of the puzzle, and we're going to talk about that today, which is super exciting. And I know that if you apply the things I'm talking about, they will work for you. And it's not super expensive. You don't need to travel around the world hanging onto the tailcoats of doctors that you can't get in line for. Their waiting lists are too long. The healing is like something that you believe, Nikki, is within you. You are a masterpiece, a creation of God that is designed to self-heal. And we just need a couple of these tools to fix the imbalance, to fix the blockage that's causing this issue from happening.
You touched on a really valid point there. I think one thing I've noticed in every movement, I mean, whether you're talking about, like, vegans have obviously got they've got sort of kind of I suppose a stereotype where they're quite militant about this is the way to live. I've now seen this with the carnivore movement. It's just human nature. Humans tend to grab onto something that works for them, and that is the only thing that works. And like you say, and when people do fail, it's almost the egos getting involved. You're failing. It's not my protocol. And I think one thing that people need to get into their minds, which I say to a lot of my clients, is we're 99.9% identical, all of us, but that 0.01% is massive. It's enormous. It's that nuance, isn't it? So like you say, it's that thing where a protocol might work for one person, and the same protocol plus one little tweak might work for the next person. So it's not always down to laziness. And even if it is down to a resistance to it, actually calling people out on it isn't the best way to get them on board. You can't be too militant. You can't be too forceful. You can't shame people into taking the action they need. You need to celebrate the fact that they're actually trying alternatives.
You got it.
So you mentioned red light therapy there. It's something that I have touched upon with a few of my clients. It was something I was getting into quite heavily in the UK because I had a business that were offering it, and it was since I moved to Portugal, that's kind of gone on the back burner. I did meet somebody on the weekend, really interestingly, at a health fair, and he's doing something with stem cell therapy. But it's patches based on, they work on the body's natural infrared to restore stem cells. And it's kind of reignited my interest in it. But you've mentioned something there. So would you like to go a bit deeper
absolutely.
on that
subject? And the signaling patches, people putting them on, like the X39, and it's helping their stem cell production. And look, it's great. A lot of people swearing by it. I've used them before. Obviously, I can't say, like it revolutionized my life, but I know that there are a lot of people that it has worked extraordinarily well for, and perhaps it worked extraordinarily well for me as well. And I should stay the course more on that. But it's a therapy that exists, and it's one that you can try, and it's inexpensive to try, and you're tapping into something that is typically an extraordinarily expensive therapy that's like a one and done. You get a stem cell injection, which I've done before, and it's cost $15,000 to have them injected, like 100 million IV, and then thought, did this help me? Did it make me any better? Did it make me worse? I don't know. And so way better to try these other things. I don't know if anyone just has that kind of money to keep blowing, right? And red light therapy is a great example of that, because it is actually something that will stimulate natural stem cell production
Mhm.
and most importantly, stem cell regeneration
Yeah.
and maturation of stem cells. And so so looking at red light therapy, you have to start trying to work out why is it that it's so effective in so many different studies, and there are thousands upon thousands of studies which you can find on government websites like the NIH PubMed website. And like I'll give you some examples. There was a lymphoma study that was a pilot study back in 2006, and you can access this on PubMed. And it shows specifically that all three patients with lymphoma, and it was B cell and T cell lymphoma, which can be fatal, they
Yeah.
all went into remission, all three patients in remission in 1 week.
Mhm.
And it was a complete absence, and that's the specific finding. If you look in the results of the abstract, a complete absence of the lymphoma, and they showed the before and after pictures in that as well, and they only had a maximum of 2 sessions of red light therapy. And so
Mhm.
now when you think about red light therapy, it is a radiation therapy, which you would associate with a cancer treatment that arguably could be effective, but is also toxic as well. But imagine if it was only helpful, it was only beneficial for healthy cells, and then it
Mhm.
would also target and kill cancer stem cells, cancer cells. In the cases of, for example, let's have a look at the breast cancer studies. They were testing different wavelengths of red light therapy for breast cancer. 4 different wavelengths were tested. 630 was one, 660 was another, 715 was another. There's also another one. And out of all of them, uh, one of them I can't remember which the other of the four was, but most importantly, the 660 was the only one that could drop the breast tumor proliferation by 40% in 24 hours. So they were exposed. In this case, it was in vitro. So they did this in a petri dish. They exposed the tumor, and it was triple negative and non-triple negative breast cancer. And
Yeah.
then 24 hours later, the cell proliferation of that tumor had dropped by 40%.
Mhm.
And then I cited to you a human study. There's many animal studies and rat studies that with the lymphoma cases, it was 100% regression of tumors in mice or rats that had functional mitochondria.
Mhm.
And if you don't have functional mitochondria, then red light therapy will help your mitochondria be functional, and then also then help in that autophagy, the maturation of those cells that will allow them to have a characteristic like apoptosis, programmed cell
Mhm.
death. You'd
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
well, why don't these cells kill themselves? Because they're not healthy. They need to replace, or they need to mature and become a normal healthy cell. They can't stay in this middle zone and just be this tumor cell, because it's certainly not beneficial to me. They keep clumping together in these areas, and they're in this organ that I don't want them to be in. They're in my breast, they're in my prostate, they're in my liver. And then, well, what do I need to do? What does this cell need? And that's the real question that we need to be asking. And the answer is, well, it needs information. It needs oxygen. And
Mhm.
so then, like you're talking about, Nikki, breathing can be so beneficial. And you see, well, why is it that some people are talking about this, and the breathing is helping people with reversing chronic disease? And then you come over and you say, okay, well, then how do we get right inside the cell? Because there's a lot of people that are doing the breathing exercises, and they're not able to put these conditions in remission. But what if you could put oxygen straight inside of those cells? And
Yeah.
what red light therapy does, it's electromagnetic, and it will actually create reactive oxygen species in the blood, which will
Mhm.
then target the cancer. And so oxygen targets disease in the body.
Mhm.
And that's another benefit of something like chlorine dioxide, which I have here, which on a basic protocol where you look at people like Dr. Andreas Kalka, that's all they're doing. They're teaching chlorine dioxide, and they're using it for all kinds of late stage cancer, autoimmune conditions, every type of autoimmune condition imaginable. And because they're on a protocol which is delivering 10,700,000 oxygen molecules for every red blood cell in the body,
Mhm.
they're delivering oxygen to the areas that it's needed, as simple as drinking water.
I think, I mean, coming back to what you said about breathing there, I actually did a podcast a while back, and it was people always say things to me like, "Oh, do you think that breath work can cure cancer?" And I'm like, "No, no, I don't think breath work can. If you've got cancer, breath work's not going to cure it. But if you are somebody that's practicing things like breath work, like nervous system management, like breathing into the diaphragm rather than into the shoulders, making sure those alveoli are expressing every day and the oxygen's reaching those red blood cells, it doing that alongside many other things stops the conditions required for cancer to exist. Whereas obviously if the horse is already bolted, like I said to you earlier, and you already have that, there are so many things out there that we're led to believe don't work, that we know work against cancer. So fembenzidol is an example. It keeps coming up recently. 13 known anti-cancer activities just from this one thing. Same with CBD and medicinal cannabis. They tend to have this ability to negatively impact cancer while not negatively impacting healthy cells. And again, coming back to red light therapy, same sort of thing. It's really sort of, it's not invasive in the way that it's carcinogenic to the body. It seems to have this way of working with the body so the body can do what it's there to do. I said to someone the other day, it's like you cut yourself and you watch it heal. And to us, that's not a miracle. It's not a miracle. That cut that our fingers hanging off, the next minute it's healing, the next minute it's gone. But if you try and say the same thing about the inside of the body, our organs and the systems inside, they look at you as if you're some kind of quack. And it's like, no, this body heals itself. The problem is we're so under attack. Our body's never in a position to actually do its job. The reason I think I have that sort of mindset is the first thing I discovered was the endocannabinoid systems. I don't know if you're aware of the system.
Very
Obviously,
familiar.
the system that medicinal cannabis works on. But that is basically, it's the master system. And the way I explain it to people is it's a messenger system, but imagine that everything in your body was a spinning plate. These plates were spinning. The endocannabinoid system, when it's doing its job, just make sure all of those plates are spinning. Nervous system, digestion, immune function. As soon as something starts going because of these external factors, because of stress, because of mental sort of bombardment that we're getting, these plates start bowing, and its job gets a lot harder. And that, I think, across the entire body, no matter how far and minute you get, it's kind of a cascade. That was one thing I was going to ask you. Doing the various different docu-series that you've done, have you noticed an exponential growth in people signing up to it? Have you noticed that it's as it getting to a bigger audience? Are we winning that fight?
Yeah, I would say so. Absolutely. I think that it comes down to, it's funny, it comes down to, getting really good at marketing, right? So marketing the right information, because you've got to stand out in that arena.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people are extraordinarily excited. You've just got to you've got to get those ads out there, or you've got to get the affiliates getting that information to the people, get the social medias videos going. But we are getting tens of millions of views to our single videos talking about all kinds of issues, whether it's us talking about red light therapy, whether it's talking about urine therapy. There's lots of people are just very curious, and there is continually a bigger exodus, which means a mass departure of people leaving the allopathic model and going for natural therapies. And because people are hearing about them, and I give that example of red light therapy as an example because it is extraordinarily cost effective. You could have a like $180 red light belt, put it on your gut, and you're putting it right over the organs that you're trying to help heal. And traditionally, you thought, okay, well, maybe if I got this steroid or this drug, I could suppress this inflammation. And then you went to the next step and you said, well, I'm going to use this supplement instead. And I mean, that's really the price of maybe 3 or 4 supplements. And then that might be a month's supply of supplements, whereas you can use a belt like that for the rest of your life. Yeah. And it's so cost effective. And then if it's regenerating organs and it's targeting the organs that you're trying to heal, and you're putting that light over those organs, then you could get such extraordinary benefit. Most people, if they know about red light therapy, they'd be more likely to put it on the other way, which is good too, to put it on your back to heal your back of your back pain, which is the number one reason people go to the doctor, is because of back pain, which is great so then you've got a 2-for-1. You're putting it on your back, you're putting it on your gut, and you're healing your back, you're healing your gut. Look, I mean, people are excited about this because they're getting their lives back and it's within reach. People can afford it. Most people can afford something like that, and then their life can be changed forever as a result.
But two things I'd like to say there. First of all, it doesn't matter how good your marketing is, if people aren't open to the message, if they still think it's like we've been made to believe for 70, 80, 100 years, pseudoscience, snake oil, all this kind of thing that's been thrown at alternative therapies, it doesn't matter how much marketing you put out there. So it's good to hear that, because the marketing only touches the people that are open to it. So that's the important thing for me. It's nice to see that more people are opening their minds to it. The second part is with regards to things like infrared. As I even use natural supplements as in this as well. When I first started my journey, I was a very, very big proponent for natural supplements. And as I've gone through it and gotten to know the body and gotten to know how all the different systems work together and how they tend to fall down and the common reasons why, I've tried to go down the route of actually getting people back to the point where their bodies can do it for them. And while red light therapy is an external thing, it's actually getting your body back to a point, like I say, where it can do its job. It's reversing that damage, which is obviously creating that snowball of problems. Whereas any supplementation, whether it be CBD, whether it be, like, do you know what I mean? Any natural supplement or pharmaceutical, you're taking something external to get a result, and that also plays on the mental side. You're running low on your CBD. Oh my God, this problem's going to come back, and we also know that there's that mind body connection, which is very strong as well. But no, really, really good to hear that, because, like I say, it doesn't matter how many people are watching stuff if we really need to know there's the appetite for it. I think we're reaching a critical mass. I think it's getting to a point that no matter what tactics they use, no matter how many fact checkers they put on your posts, etc., which we all know about, it's starting to get through to people, which is very nice to hear. I
Awesome.
love that. I love that. So we'll go back into red light therapy toward the end, because I know you've got something that you would like to kind of offer to the listeners as well on that side of things.
Yeah, that'd be great to help
Um,
them.
but so coming back to the autoimmunity, what was the one that I most recently watched? I'm pretty certain. So it started off there was your mum's friend was extremely unwell due
Oh
to
yeah, Ali.
obviously the recent sort of enforced medications that she'd been taking. And that story really touched me. I mean, obviously there was a lot of stories there which I could resonate with, and I'm hearing a lot of them myself and I'm seeing them, and obviously we know that they're kind of being silenced. But that must have been a great feeling for you. I mean, obviously doing
Oh
it for
yeah.
people that you never get to meet is nice, and you're hearing good stories, but actually having that impact on someone close to your family, did that have a different resonance? Did it really,
Yeah.
how did that make you feel?
Yeah, it was beautiful. I mean, like my dad had always had a hard time with me being out of the box because it was offensive in a way. Like he's like, why do you have to take a position that's so different to everyone else?
Mhm.
And you're offending people. People are upset, and that would happen in a religious setting. I'd be in church, and I'd say, yeah, but the Bible clearly says this thing. He said, and it'd be along the lines of, yes, but this is just, this is the tradition that we've had. He wouldn't say these words exactly, but it was that motif where it's like, look, let's just follow what we've been told. And
Mm.
for me, I had to learn that I had to be okay with everyone being upset with what I was thinking, but if I thought it was true, even if it wasn't true, I had to be integrous to that. And
Yeah.
so and so you come full circle, they would attend church together, and Ali was somebody that needed help, and that she was in a life-threatening state, and her husband just sitting next to her bed wondering if she was going to make it through the night because she could not breathe, and how traumatic that would be. It's like people's, some of their top fears would be being buried alive, and mainly because you couldn't breathe in that setting, and
Suffocation.
there'd
Mm.
be no way out of that. Yeah, it's so traumatic. And just imagine, not being able to get your breath in. And so then the information then that then helped her to be able to breathe and to get through the night, and her husband Ian just feeling so um, grateful that she had got the information that she needed. And that wouldn't have come if I just stayed inside of a box, but because I was willing to look at the information. In this case, nicotine was very effective for her.
Mhm.
Urine therapy was very effective for her. These were things that were where I was shunned for to talk about them, because, well, nicotine's addictive, it's a harmful drug. Well, yeah, but but it's in eggplants, it's in tomatoes, it's in potatoes, and there's thousands of published studies on nicotine and how effective it is. And so why, for various conditions, so how could I not talk about this and help her with this condition, of which many people, some of my best friends, their parents, one in particular I'm thinking of was paralyzed in hospital. Manny, his mom, was in hospital, paralyzed with Guillain-Barré, post-COVID, and getting then the nicotine patch and gum allowed her to then get out of hospital that following week, like nothing happened to her. And so it is really helpful. And then, getting a screenshot from him of exactly that, like I'm out, it's like nothing happened to me. It's like, fingers crossed, is this going to hold up? And she hasn't been back in hospital since. But yeah, and then the next message, I can't tell you how much you mean to me, brother. Thank you. And these things are beautiful, and it's something that we're all called to. And I think that one of the things I'd say is that the person watching this, the community around you that need the information that you're learning, that you're sitting here watching this, you have a bigger influence in their lives than I do. And you have the greater capacity to touch their lives because you love them more than I love them. Because I don't know them, but you know them, and they're your closest colleagues. If they died, I would see something maybe in the news and say, "Oh, isn't that so sad?" And it would touch my heart, and I'd feel sad. But you'd never forget about it. You'd never forget about this person. They'd continually be in your mind. You love them deeply, and you have information that could save them, that could help them, that could give them a better life, that could put joy on their whole family's face and everyone that knows and loves them. And so you have that commitment. And we're seeing the same things with red light therapy. We're seeing people get their lives back, and we're seeing the same things with chlorine dioxide, people getting their lives back. And I was just at this event. It was Healing for the Ages, Dr. Brian Artis, Dr. Henry Ely, Ed Group, and Doctors Ed Group and Dr. Jana Schmidt. And when I was there, because a lot of the people, there's a few hundred people there, maybe 400 people in the audience, almost everyone there was very familiar with my work. And I just had the privilege. My sister-in-law was with me, and I said, "Hey, look, can you help me with interviewing some of these people?" She'd come up, and it was just mind-blowing. A lot of these people all became suicidal because their conditions were so bad, and they were in either so much pain, or sometimes the toxins that came with this. And if you look at the studies on celiac disease, speaking of autoimmune disease, the suicide rates are twice as high for celiac men, young men, than they are for non-celiac. Young men in the same age group, around the 20, 30, 40 year mark. This particular study was showing this. And it's because of the imbalance that happens. And so you see somebody go from a state where they want to end their life, and for multiple reasons, because there is some toxins that are causing them to have this imbalance to want to take their life. And then on the other hand, their quality of life in many cases is so low. They just want an escape from that. And the best escape is freedom from that ailment. And if you apply these things, if you start using some of these things that we're talking about, the chlorine dioxide, the urine therapy, the nicotine, the dietary protocols, getting the inflammatory foods out, the gluten-free, inflammatory free or anti-inflammatory diet, and you've got to choose what you are convicted with, that information, whether it's plant-based or whether it's something that has some of these elements. You might be taking some animal products, but it's in the ratios that is going to work for you, or the information is clear to you. But just moving forward with your convictions then becomes the most important thing, because you can do it. You feel alone and you feel like there's no one on your path, but there is a straight pathway for you. You're the only one in your shoes. You have to walk that journey. It's your own hero's journey. You have to walk it. You have to press through it. And it's your responsibility then to add things into your life, to add the right protocols, to keep trying and to not give up. You may be one single protocol, one single addition to your regimen away. I love these cases where, they tried everything, and then all of a sudden they try urine therapy, and their life has come back together. You've even seen a case like that. And was it through me you'd learned about urine therapy?
I'd heard of it before in the past, but it was one of those I didn't really go into. I'd heard about it and I thought, well, that's interesting. Park that for later. And then when it came up in the most recent one of your docu-series that I watched, it sort of kind of reignited it, and I sort of suggested it to somebody. It wasn't actually a client; it was someone that I've dealt with on the breathwork side. They're a friend of mine, and I've sort of I give them a lot of free advice on the coaching side.
That's
And I just
nice.
said, look, give it a go. And it was like, no chance. And I sent them over some information on it, obviously off of the back of yourself.
Great.
And a couple of weeks later, it was like, I tried that, and it kind of worked almost. And what I try to get across to people as well is a lot of times with these protocols, not saying you're going to be cured immediately, but you
Yeah.
feel the benefits and you feel the changes, and you can
Yeah.
feel that something positive is happening.
And you say
Um,
kind of work. Tell me what you mean by kind of worked.
well, it worked. It helped
Yeah.
his situation out enormously.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
yeah,
That's a little
I
more
didn't
than
clear it
kind of
with him
work.
as to whether I could talk about his specific
Well,
case.
you
So I'll
haven't told
keep.
his name, so you can say everything about it because you haven't said their name.
Yeah, so he basically tried it because he had suspected ulcerative colitis, and we've
Yeah.
been working on it. We've been reducing its impact, and a lot of the things we were doing were managing it, but it was managing it. It was still there, it was still having flare ups, and it's still early days. I'm not saying he's cured from it, but like he said to me, he said doing that, I can feel it was a very different. It was a very different sort of improvement, is what he
Wow.
said to me. So it
That's awesome.
feels so. Again, I'll keep you posted on his long term
Oh
side of
yeah.
things.
Well, it's
But
great, and that's what you want. It creates more trust when you share stories like that. And I mean, here's a free therapy. There's no one that's selling this because it's from you, and we're just
exactly.
explaining to you how to use it. And you can watch this. You can watch a free summit, and then you can go and apply this and get the results. And
Mhm.
I mean, look, who's gaining from this? I kind of faced the thing of like losing my whole credibility over this because it
Mhm.
was so out of the box, and it's so well established, quote unquote, that urine is a waste product and it's toxic. But then
Mhm.
you do more research and you realize that there's zero toxins in urine, and it's got it has the most concentration of anti-autoimmune and anti-cancer substances
Mhm.
imaginable out of the 5,600 compounds. Tell me which ones are the toxins. And you'd say, okay, well, sure. Well, I got my blood work done and I showed high levels of mercury. So therefore, I've got mercury in my urine. So therefore, I should not do this. And I've taken medications and I'm doing this and this and I've done this and this. So like this is going to be a toxic substance. And then you compare that then to the womb and you look at the fact that when the environmental working group studied the 400 chemicals that were going through the umbilical cord
Yeah.
through the mother. They only tested for 400. They should have tested for 40,000 or 400,000, but they tested for 400 and they found 287. And
Yeah.
out of those, 180 were proven to cause cancer, brain deformations, birth defects. Now, how is it possible that if the baby continues to urinate in the womb, which it does every 1 to 3 hours and drinks hundreds of milliliters of urine per day, how is it possible that the baby would survive when every time it drinks its urine and then it puts out its waste product through the urine,
Yeah.
it becomes more and more toxic? But the exact opposite is true. It's giving itself signaling molecules
Mhm.
because the blood is filtered through the kidneys. The kidneys are then producing a filtrate of the blood, which is plasma ultrafiltrate, blood ultrafiltered. Then when you're drinking that back into the body, it's signaling the body to remove those specific poisons. So it'll
Mhm.
actually, if you're doing it, it'll cause all those markers to drop. And so you can look at your body is giving you a prescription. It's an anti-mercury reading. It's
Mhm.
something that's showing you the constituents. So the metabolite has the same characteristics, which is what you want. It's an identification system, but it's not the substance itself. It's a bound form it's a filtered form. It's a metabolic product of the blood, which is then a signaling molecule, and it causes the body then to remove these poisons. So that's a really great way to see it. And so then you look at cases that I've personally witnessed and covered their stories so that people can see these stories in detail. People like Gloria Charlene,
Mhm.
she was bleeding 16 days a month after a forced medical procedure that she had to get because she was a lecturer. So it was part of the mandate. So that experimental jab that came out, she,
Mhm.
was forced to take it, or she chose to take it, however you want to see that. But she then had a life ruined and heart palpitations every day for 2 years, bleeding 16
Yeah.
days a month, extreme migraines, extreme pain during periods so bad that it was worse than childbearing, and a massive amounts of blood blood loss, stroke-like symptoms, numbness on one side of the body. So her 17-year-old had to look forward to a future where she didn't have a mother. They were putting her into a situation where she would be assigned with the right family members if her mother was to die, and getting prepared for that. Those conversations are all over. The first day she drank her urine was the last day she had heart palpitations after 2 years of having extreme heart palpitations every single day. It's now been a year and a half since that time, and she's never had a single heart palpitation from the first day of drinking her urine. It signaled her body profoundly. And people have an aversion hearing that, but more research will clear up that aversion. Also, enemas. A lot of people that are battling autoimmune conditions are willing to do coffee enemas and these things, and you really should be, because it's such an easy way to do things. And a lot of people that do enemas find them extremely relaxing. They look forward to doing them because it's like it's a meditative experience. It's you can get an enema kit off Amazon or anywhere you want for 20, 30 bucks or less. And then you can then put in whatever substances you believe that could be helpful for you, that you don't have to consume orally then, urine being one of them, aged urine being another one, which the study from the Wake Forest found 100 million stem cells when urine was cultured for 3 weeks or left to sit for 3 weeks. What could 100 million stem cells do? What if you put those stem cells in? What if you combine that with red light therapy? So you're actually alerting those stem cells to go to those areas of the body that are most affected, and therefore that treatment would be most effective. So lots of amazing things. And look, the healing is for everyone. They just were willing to do it. And a lot of the people listening just need to then be willing to say, well, I'm just going to try it. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's the chlorine dioxide. Maybe it's the nicotine. Maybe, just choose. And you can typically only get started with one or two things because there's only so much room in your head for so many things. But then get started on that. And then the next week, maybe see what else you can add in. But all of a sudden you'll look back and you'll say, why don't I have any of these conditions anymore? And it'll be that way. And it's that simple.
I think people also need to understand as well, and this is one thing I'm a big proponent for, and I think it leads to a lot of our sort of common health issues, is going back to the thing you were saying there about when being in the womb and these signaling systems. That's building resilience for your body's systems on how to deal with things. And what we've done, I use this quite regularly with the gut microbiome. It's like, the kills 99.9% of bacteria. What we've done is, by thinking we're protecting ourselves, we've actually made our body think it doesn't need to do the job it needs to do. And we've lost that resilience to take on sort of obviously illness. And I think also on a large scale, we've also done that with the mental resilience, which is why simple things like cold water therapy, there are some metabolic things that are going on there as well. But really what that's doing is that's a mind thing. It's strengthening the mind. No matter how many days you do a cold plunge, every day you still got to psych yourself up for it, So it's really conquering that fear, building that mental resilience, and that follows through the body as well. And I think we've lost a lot of resilience. So things like that can only be beneficial. And another thing when it comes to the urine therapy, a good thing to think of is, a while back they identified that obviously the excrement into the colon, that was a therapy that they found, and obviously that was shunned and looked upon, but that's actually being used even in a sort of mainstream sort of avenue now. So again, it's about
microbial transplant.
And I think it's about creating that awareness. Coming back to what you were saying earlier about, don't worry about what people may think, and people might not be ready for your message. We're human beings have only thrived as we have for thousands and thousands of years because we're storytellers. We pass on knowledge, we pass on beneficial knowledge, we pass on the stuff that we should avoid. And I know we're going through a very funny time at the moment. It's very easy to be sort of labeled, and you might get a funny look back when you speak to a friend about urine therapy. But it may be that when they get to a point where they're desperate, or where they're more open to it, or they've seen somebody else talk about it, and they see 3 or 4 more influencers or even doctors that are now, obviously, like you say, starting to move away from that allopathic side. They're starting to lean into their intuition. Then that person may be ready for it. So even if you're just sowing that seed, lighting the initial spark, which might lead to them actually using it further down the line. I think if you've got knowledge, pass it on to people, especially your loved ones. You don't have to become someone that's sharing it on the internet to a wider audience, but at least your loved ones, and especially those that are suffering things that this could help. Because that's where it starts. Sow that seed, and then it's over to them to to really sort of pull the thread if they want to.
You got
Well,
it.
so we've run out of time. That went very, very quickly. I had loads I wanted to cover, but that will have to wait for maybe round two. So I know
Yeah,
obviously you
look
wanted to
forward to it.
mention we've covered obviously the red light therapy today. There's something that you would like to offer to any of my listeners as well that
Yeah,
may be
absolutely.
interested in taking that further forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that, people sometimes just won't get started unless they can know that there's a device that has been proven to work.
Hmm.
And this is something that I stand behind, and I've seen our devices work. And then I want people to be able to have access to that, and people then have the freedom to go choose and do whatever they like with that information. But it can be then so effective then to say, okay, look, if here's somebody that's getting results with these devices, why don't I just try those devices that are getting results? And one of the things that
Hmm.
we do as well is we cover people with a 60-day money back guarantee. So it's a risk-free trial in your home. And if you're hearing about red light therapy, if you go to a red light therapy center or a clinic that will offer that, it's 80 to 100 $80 to $200 is the average. If you just do a Google search, and you'll find like what's the
Yeah.
average cost. And so then you really ideally should do it every day. So do the math on that. Let's just take the lower end of that, but somewhere in the ballpark. So let's say $100. A
Hmm.
week of that is $700, right? Do you want to spend that and then have nothing at the end of it? Like then you have a therapy that you're relying on. That clinic is happy because you've lined up and you paid for their services, and they want to be in business, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, is that the best thing for you? And I would say, look, these centers should really be telling people about this. If you want to solve the problem for people, get it in their homes, because they're going to get much better results with the daily experience. Waiting in line is not pleasant. Getting in a car, I mean, that's your gas, your parking, your
Hmm.
time, all of these things. Like, I could be sitting here with a red light therapy on my belt, on my gut while I'm
Yeah.
working, and it's just so simple. I was just looking around to see if I could pick up the belt
Well,
here.
it's consistency with these things, and obviously you need convenience for that. So there's nothing more convenient than being able to do it, like you say, at home, sat at the desk at work, or whatever it may be. Whenever you've got that time to actually have your session, and like you say, go to a red light therapy center. You may get some benefits in that week, and then you got to stop because again, you're going to have to mortgage the house to be able to do it on an ongoing basis. So
Yeah.
why not have that as you say, at home, nice and easy for you. Okay.
Exactly. And I see that happen. I see people spend $40,000 on a treatment center, and they're 3 weeks in and they get some great results. They go home and a lot of their symptoms are coming back. And I'm talking about the world leading cancer clinics, and my friends run these, I'm friends and connected with all these different people, and they're offering great services. But yeah, having something like a red light therapy belt like this, which is so simple,
Yeah.
but you've got your LED panels there, or your LEDs, and you just strap that around your gut, and then so you get the point, right? So it's
Yeah. Yeah.
around these sections. You turn it on, and then you're in business. You're doing the
Concentrated.
therapy. Yeah. You're doing the therapy. And so the place to go for that is myredlight.com, and we can give
Hmm.
them a coupon code. What's a good one that your audience would like? Would it be heal? Would it be, because I'm seeing that would it be
I'll
um
do I'll do I'll
Nikki?
do alt exp, so alternative experience, ALTEXP.
Yeah, ALTEXP is the code there. You get an extra 10% off. And so we've got a lot of discounts there already on the page. People get full body panels, and they're amazing because we put 8 different wavelengths in our device, 480, all the way up to 1060. And the 660 that I talked about, the 630 was in the lymphoma study, the 660 was in the breast cancer study, and then the 810, the 850. So many studies on the brain, formaldehyde, pulling
Yeah.
formaldehyde out of the brain, which is correlated with Alzheimer's. That's
Mhm.
all in the near infrared. So we've got all those spectrums in the device, 8 spectrums, eight spectrum wavelength with a 205 milliwatts delivered per centimeter squared. So high irradiance. So
Yeah.
when you're looking at devices, you've got to look at a high irradiance level and the right wavelength for your
Yeah.
condition. And so we've covered, generally speaking, all of it. And so people can get those devices there. We've given some great supplements that can help activate that light as well as a free gift, and a free belt and these different things, and a stand for free and all these different things. And there's already some really heavy discounts. And then you're then adding an additional 10% off when you go to My Red Light, and then you use the code ALTX,
Alt-X.
exp,
Exp.
yeah, yeah, alt exp, which is great. So, and it's just a great way to get started on something with a company that's doing a lot of training as well. So when you get that, you're not just getting a device. We're continually doing trainings, helping people to understand it, how to use it, how to use the photosensitizing agents like methylene blue, which you can get very inexpensively, extremely effective for all different types of conditions, from autoimmune to cancer. Taking that while you're in front of the red light, just you can take it immediately. Curcumin, you take it about 1 to 2 hours before you get in front of the red light, proven to kill cancer stem cells, activate the light in various organs of your body, and help you heal. So combine these therapies and watch everything turn on. And the most advanced centers, they just say, just get in the light. But what about, well, what could I put in my body before I get in front of this light that would make this potentially as much as 10 times more effective?
Supercharger,
yeah. And so that information then becomes critical. So my commitment is to helping people get better. That's the only thing that makes me excited about what I do. I don't, everything else is unfulfilling, and it's what brings it all full circle. And that's where it's the same in my heart and mind. Like the humanitarian work, it's just all about those results and seeing people get better. That's what makes me excited.
Excellent. It shows your character 100%. I mean, what I would also say as well as anybody that's listening to this is one thing I try and get across to people, coming back to what I was saying to you about breath work earlier, not being a cure for something, but being something that can stop those conditions that are required for something to happen. Red light therapy isn't just for when the horse is bolted. You don't need to wait until you're unwell. Again, changing your diet and taking out ultra processed foods isn't something you should wait until you're ill to do. So this is something that's useful for everybody. The red light therapy, don't just wait until you're ill. Use it as a preventative as well. It's also going to have those same effects for you.
You got it.
That is obviously available to people that are also not trying to deal with an ailment.
You got it. So true. I was doing this interview with a undefeated heavyweight boxer that has turned truther, David Nino Rodriguez.
Yeah.
It went viral. It was a great show that we did, and he had used the belt, and he was like, "What's red light do?" And he said, "But oh yeah, that's right. When I used that red light belt, it took my back out of pain, which would have either been expensive therapy, or surgery, stem cells, et cetera, or just a life of pain." He's only 48, so that's not a great future of the next few decades like that. He's got a baby on the way. He's got an infant. How can he be his best? And lifting to pick them up will mean he just has a better experience. And so then just strapping that on your back, strapping that on your front, and the panels are amazing. Here's some of the smaller ones are here, and I can show you what that looks like right here. But this is kind of just understanding how all this stuff works. Well, here we go. And then so now
wow.
you see do you see the blue lights on there? I just need to plug it in properly here. I've got the wrong cable here.
No, that's fine. Well, I think at the end of the day as well, I think one thing, because I obviously get a lot of people speak to me about these alternative therapies. If an alternative therapy comes up in my sort of community, it's the question that comes to me: what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And a lot of people are asking about infrared therapy. A lot of people think they've got to go and buy these like super expensive Gary Brecker machines, which, like you say, you need a mortgage to purchase. And I kind of say to people,
$30,000.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're absolutely rolling in money and you want to have something that you walk into and you want that, but it's not going to be any different on the results. That's amazing.
But it is true. It is true. And they've put about let's see, they've put 3 or 4 different wavelengths into those $130,000 devices. And even in this small device, we put 8 different wavelengths. And so it may be the exact wavelength that you need. And the difference is, like in this case, it's a smaller device, and we've got this is not a full body panel. This is a 500 watt. So the full body panels are 3 or 4 times this size. They've got 300 LEDs. This has 100, but then I just need to put it on the sections that I'm trying to heal.
Yeah.
Right. And use the stand, and so it just gives you an idea of how to use it. And improvement in eyesight is fantastic. Like 17% improvement in eyesight in a week. Keep doing that and see what happens. And that's 1 minute or 3 times a week, or 3 minutes once a week. Or you could take that to a bit more of an extreme and do 3 minutes a day with your eyes open in front of you. You don't have to look directly into it. You'll see that. And as well, a lot of people don't teach what to do with this. You want to be about 3 inches away to get the highest irradiance, the highest power. And so then you're just keeping your eyes open. But again, that's something that you can get, and you can, a lot of the other therapies we talked about are as free as they can get. The urine therapy, chlorine dioxide is free, delivering the oxygen molecules directly inside your cells. Those compounds are measured in picometers. So there's 1,000 picometers that go into a nanometer. And if you can get something that will go straight through your cells and deliver oxygen, watch what you can heal. Everything you thought was impossible becomes possible, because it's delivering oxygen to the areas that you need that. And then this is also activating your cells to produce reactive oxygen species that will then counter the disease. And so combine these therapies and live a long life, live a great life.
We called it, I learned a phrase, but when I got into medicinal cannabis, I learned a phrase called the entourage effect, because what people were doing with medicinal cannabis, they were taking like CBD isolate. So they were isolating the CBD, and people weren't getting very good results. And it was what's been found with cannabis and a lot of botanicals is the full complement supercharge each other. So if you've got 115 cannabinoids, they've all got their own therapeutic profile on their own. They've got some ability. Together, they just supercharge. And it's the same with all of these things, all of these different modalities that we can use in unison with each other. They're all, like you say, together. It's literally the turnarounds that you can. I mean, some of the turnarounds I've seen that I explain to people think I'm making stuff up. Just by having this different approach and this open mind to trying other things. I mean, don't get me wrong, don't just try everything. Don't just try it because it sounds controversial. There needs to be some kind of research done in the background at least. But try these things, try them together, try them with living in service to yourself, actually trying to reduce the stress, trying to actually give yourself some time every day, the simple things in life as well. But all of these things together, they really do have a massive, massive potential. And so many people I meet, they really do feel they're too far gone. Do you know what I mean? It's their issues have been all consuming. It's been the one thing that's on their mind all day, every day, while they're trying to live a life and pay bills. Are these stresses, are these illnesses, are these imbalances? And it's very, very natural to think that is just the way your life is going to be. Take a leap of faith, look into alternative things. Don't allow yourself to be indoctrinated, even by anybody, even by us. You've got to do your due diligence, but try other things. And I think you'll be very surprised what the results can be.
Sounds awesome.
Absolutely amazing. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap up. I know you've got other commitments and myself too. So we'll leave that one there for now. I would like to do this again. I won't put you on the spot. We'll speak out.
No, I'd love that. Let's do it.
Speak offline. If anybody needs to get hold of you, where are the best places to find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, find us on social. So you'll see me on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And so just looking up my name, Jonathan Otto, and you'll find me pretty easily there. That just have a little search around, you'll find me, and follow me on those different platforms. We're releasing a lot of great content there. And then from there, healthsecret.com, jonathanotto.tv, some of our great series like Cancer Decoded or cancerseries.com, so which all are, they're all autoimmune protocols, because cancer is really late stage autoimmunity. And so if you can do the therapy, which is basically universal antidote against cancer, it's the same thing I advise for any type of autoimmune condition. You can go more in detail in the trainings around chlorine dioxide. You can register for our free series, watch our documentaries, like you have, Nikki, which is what, one of the tools that makes you the wealth of knowledge that you are. Get some of these great free tools that we're offering because they will change your life. What you know matters, and I'm here to support you in that.
Awesome. Absolutely amazing. Thank you very much. That was great.
Right.
So thanks for tuning in, guys. Like I said, I'll get that link out to everybody. I'll also put your links in the bio as well. So if anybody needs to just go there and just click, they can. But I appreciate your time. Amazing conversation.
All right. Thanks so
Thank you
much,
very
Nicky. Pleasure.
So what did you think about that? What a lovely guy. Really did enjoy that conversation, and really looking forward to the follow-up as well. Now, I will put links in the show notes to the discount code for that red light therapy. Now, there's the entire range on there. It's not just the belt. So go and have a look at that website. Have a look at what sort of ticks all the boxes for you. They are already around about 50% off, I believe, most of the prices and the packages. But they're also going to give you an extra 10% off with that discount code as well. So, and again, I think there's a method for you to reach out if you want more information on what item would be more suited for you. But get on there and have a look at it. I'll also include, as I say, Jonathan's Instagram profile, as well as a couple of his docu-series, which I think are very, very useful for people. Quite often they're free, and I would highly recommend people start educating themselves on these things. And I'm also going to put a link in there as well, because Jonathan gives to the Kenyan food crisis through his humanitarian work. So I'm going to put a link on there for anybody that would like to donate to his fundraiser there. But I hope you enjoyed that show, guys. Until the next one, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon. The Alternative Experience.
The Alternative Experience.
The Alternative Experience.